Hey everyone, this is Chelsea from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm here today with composer Daniel Jamieson. In addition to leading his own critically acclaimed big band, the Danjam Orchestra, Dan has written for the world-class Metropole Orchestra and the WDR Big Band. Dan is here to show us how setting limits can lead to new ideas.
So when composing a new original work, you're confronted with a completely blank canvas and the sky's the limit, which is really cool, but in reality, it can be really daunting and it can be hard to know where to start. So I'm here to show you how placing some simple limits on yourself can actually make the writing process a little easier. I found myself falling into a habit of writing scalar melodies without many repeated notes. So I set out to write a piece that broke away from this trend by composing a melody that was made up of larger intervals, specifically intervals larger than a fifth, followed by a smaller interval, a whole or half step. So the piece I'm going to use to demonstrate this concept is an original of mine called Phantasm that was inspired by the picturesque waters of Lake Louise in Alberta, Canada. So here's my sketch of the melody for the first two A sections. So if you have a look here, I start with a major six, followed by a half step, followed by a major seventh, followed by a tone, a semitone, and then another major six. So I broke my rule in the middle there by having two small intervals in a row, so the jazz police can come after me. But you can see more or less for the melody here, I stuck with those limits that I set out for myself. The form of this tune is AABA. And for the first two A sections, I lengthened the rhythms, which slowed down the overall melodic motion and allowed room for the theme to breathe and build. So let's have a listen to the first two A sections. So there you have it, the first two A's, and hopefully you can hear how I applied those limits to this melody. Let's take a look at the bridge now. So for the bridge, I wrote a melody comprised of smaller intervals, specifically intervals no larger than a third, and long notes to go against that urge of writing a really busy bridge with lots of fast-moving notes. So one unique thing about this bridge in particular, since it's made up of mostly long notes, it left a lot of room behind to write counter melodies. So every time the bridge is presented in this piece, I composed a different counter melody to go along with it, and each one builds on the last as the piece goes by. So right now we're going to have a listen to the bridge on the head in, listen for the counter melody played by the lower voices, and I'm also going to let it play through the last A. You're going to notice that I increase the rhythmic motion of the last A by repeating melody notes on offbeats. Here we go. So I hope you can hear how I used my original sketch as source material and then manipulated it into its final form. One thing I want you to take away from this is that you should use these limits as a building block, but then massage it into place to make it musical. One thing to be careful of, though, is when you do this, make sure you don't fall back into old habits, undoing the purpose of the limits. So we're going to put a link to the full track in the description below. Also, Florian Höfner did a great mini lesson for us a few weeks ago on how to break away from traditional instrument roles, which kind of goes hand in hand with this concept. So whether it's phrase lengths, voicings, instrument roles, or melody structure, try placing some limits on yourself. It will not only help you break away from old habits, but for me, I find the piece actually starts to write itself.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comment box down below. To watch our full-length events and join in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head over to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.